our supplies today, I have brand new Winston Newton pencils that I recently got and I wanted to test out. I have the HB one sharpened to a very fine point, and I have that very long tip on it. I have a 2B, a 4B, and an 8B as well. I have a mechanical pencil also that I added in 0.5 for fine detailing, 2 blending stumps just to test out, a kneaded eraser, a regular one, and I also have this fine point eraser, which is great for carving out edges or adding different streaks of highlights. Hand number 1. I begin by blocking out the major shapes that I'm seeing. I'm trying to forget that I'm looking at a hand and just focus on the shapes that are in front of me. During this process, I'm measuring with my pencil to make sure that my proportions are accurate and that I'm not skewing too far from reality. Obviously, we'll never catch anything perfectly, but for studying purposes, I'm trying to do my very best to have the most accurate representation. The shapes will begin to resemble fingers, but I'm still trying to focus on the major shapes and squinting my eyes from the reference to really see that. Once the fingers start to reveal themselves to me, I decide to carve out the background with a gray alcoholic marker to take away that stark whiteness because it was really distracting me. From there, I'm continuing to carve out the hand and the fingers. And I'm also using a blending stump just to add some blurriness to the shading process. It's important to keep in mind that with a blending stump, it's just another tool in your toolbox. So what that means is that you're still drawing and you're using it to enhance your drawing, not just smudging it around. You always want to be drawing with the blending stump while using it so it doesn't get too messy looking. Hand number 2. I start by applying the same techniques as the last hand. I've noticed that the proportions of the hand seem to be that the palm length is about the same size as the top of the palm to the middle finger. And then from there, if we're using the middle finger as reference, it is about half to the first knuckle, fits 2 times in the middle finger. And from there, I've been using these points as reference and to kind of anchor me to be able to move forward with the drawing. I decided to kill the white with the marker again, partially to make it uniform, partially because the white is just bothering me on this drawing. And honestly, while I'm trying to learn and teach myself anatomy, I'm also trying to unwind and see where the drawing leads me and have a little bit of fun with it. So I'm allowing myself to be a little bit loose with what materials I grab. Next spread. On this page, I wanted to play around with composition as well as learning how the hand moves. On this page, I'm working on with just pencil. That was just a little goal I had for myself, and I'm trying to build up the tones and values, and you see me switching with different types of pencils. And honestly, I have a tendency to do this in my drawings, and I can never just stick to a mechanical or a graphite pencil. I enjoy combining them. For some reason in my brain, it allows me to achieve more variation with the line weights, and it just helps me grasp the drawing better. I don't know, it just does. I try to do different positions on this page, and I'm also trying to stack my drawings on top of one another. What I mean by this is that I see a lot of inspiration photos of these beautiful sketchbook spreads, and there's layered images of these random things that kind of come together and form one big spread. And I have been really struggling to do that. My brain cannot compute how to do that, or something looks awkward, or I exaggerate the proportions. So I'm currently trying to relearn the basics of composition, and I'm forcing myself to practice this skill. Honestly, I'm pretty okay with how this page ended up coming out, but there's definitely room for growth and improvement in the future. If any of you have any tips on how you perfected this method or has helped you kind of grasp how to get all these various images to look cohesive on a page, I would really appreciate if you could comment any tips below. Honestly, I don't know why my brain struggles with this. Anatomical hand. After the previous spread, I wanted to challenge myself a bit, and I found a reference photo of a hand showing the placements of veins and tendons under the skin. I'll put a photo up just in case you guys want to draw along with me. My thought process on this was that it would be great to understand what the hand looks like under the flesh to be able to visualize it better when I'm drawing from life or just in general. Honestly, I think I approached this very optimistically, and for some reason I thought that it would be less of a challenge because it was less complicated of a positioning than the previous hands that I was drawing. But the veins were definitely a challenge on their own. I started to kind of get lost in the detail, and that is why I decided to pull out the colored pencil and my Posca markers. My eyes were just kind of going crazy trying to keep up with all the layers and not mess up. It honestly felt like a labyrinth of veins, and drawing it though, although it was very complicated to keep straight in my brain, unexpectedly it gave me a lot of inspiration for stuff in my sketchbook, which I'll show you guys in a later video. I think it's so interesting that with art or creativity, you approach something with an intention of doing it one way, right? And it turns into something else. So for me, this one I approached very academically, I'm gonna really study the anatomy of the hand, but it ended up being something that gave me a whole creative spurt, which was really fun. The final spread. For the last spread, I took photos of my hand and different symbols, and I'm just going to go with that for this page. I wanted to play with one of my favorite mediums, the ink pens. They are just so nice, and they glide so nicely, and I thought it would be a really fun challenge. I did do a quick outline and pencil just to get the placement of those hands right. We talked about this before a little bit earlier about making the composition on a page look normal, and I wanted to approach this one with a little more intention and really think it through a little bit more. I also ended up picking up a ballpoint pen, the fun ones where you click down and it's different colors. Those I think they're $1, and they are honestly one of my favorite art supplies because they're very cheap and they're great on the go, and they just work really well. You can get some really fun renderings out of those. So I'm playing around with the size of the hands and just kind of seeing where this drawing takes me. The page seemed to lack something once the hands were all placed, and I was thinking about adding these swirly lines and playing with line weight. And honestly, I also wanted to utilize this medium of these brush pens and play with them because it's really fun to make different types of lines with them. Anyway, overall, I'm pretty happy with this page and will continue to practice my anatomy and composition. But, there's always room to grow. Let me know what you think down below. If there's anything you would improve on or you have any suggestions, I would love to hear it. Remember to comment, and subscribe. It really helps a gal out, even though it's very cringy to say.